The September meeting of Policy and Resources Committee. We have a full agenda of business this morning, and I intend that we make brisk progress. I'll start by reminding everyone present that the meeting will be recorded and that the recording will subsequently be made available for public listening. Rona, can you provide the Sederunt and any apologies, please?
Thank you. I have apologies from Councillors Charteris, Fairbairn, McGregor and Surtees. And as we start the meeting, Councillors Brodie, no, I'll change that. They're both present. Thank you.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Do any members wish to make a declaration of interest? Yes.
Yes, Chair. It's item 13. My company is the holder of the current incumbent on the Fresh Bakery contract, but given the nature of the report, I don't think I would need to leave the room. There's no sensitive information or nothing to be concerned with.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Any other member? Before we embark on the remainder of the agenda, Lorna, you wish to give an update on running order?
Thank you, Chair. In relation to item 15, I would want to advise members that I'll be withdrawing the report today on disposal and acquisition policy. Having been consulted on a number of points following the review of schemes subcommittee, I consider that we need to carry out further review in relation to the common good and member involvement, reflecting the proposals that are going forward to full council on area committee remits. And we intend to bring that report back to members at full council in 2 weeks' time alongside that area committee report, so the matters can be considered together.
Thank you, Lorna. We'll move on to item 3, minute of the meeting of 15th June. This minute is for noting. Are we content to note? I take it that we are. Thank you. Item 4 is the report on Convention of Scottish Local Authorities, COSLA and Improvement Service Annual Conference 5th and 6th October 2017. Members will be aware that COSLA is holding its annual conference in early October and that COSLA Convention will be held on the second day of this conference. The report asks us to consider the level of elected member attendance at the event. I therefore invite members' views on that level of attendance and note that in recent years each political group has nominated one member to attend. Members? Councillor Driver.
I think that's a fair and equitable way forward here, that one member from each of the groups can nominate one from their own group and go forward that way.
Thank you, Councillor Driver. Happily second that if required. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, it's just, is it worth putting in something where by the nominated person could put forward a substitute, given the sort of timescales and busyness of elected members?
I'm grateful for the reminder. I note that this falls in Business Week and that may particularly affect some of the convention delegates, or the usual convention delegates. If we can agree that it's as outlined by Councillor Dryborough, but for the convention delegate or nominated substitute. Are members content with that? Excellent, thank you very much. Item 5 is the Annual Treasury Management Report 2016-17. The Council is required to receive an annual Treasury Management Review setting out the Council's approach to management of investments, cash flows, banking, money market and capital market transactions. The Council agreed its Treasury Management Strategy for 2016-17 at full Council on the 24th of March 2016. The report sets out the performance following financial year end of Treasury management activities as compared to the published strategy, and reports that the end-of-year debt position of the Council was £197 million. Gemma Lowry and Andrew Hewitt are present to deal with any questions arising from the report. I'll open this to members. Councillor Crothers.
Thanks. Yeah, I suppose just to get started, I've quite enjoyed reading this report. Actually, it's open and very transparent, I thought, in the way we go forward. I suppose, just as a start, just to get things rolling, it shows that we're paying, it's recommendation 2.3, that the net interest paid in the year, taking that as the whole year, was just under £8.5 million. My understanding that our interest is considerably more, is that it may be reflected later on in the report, just to get a clearer understanding. Our annual interest payment, is that as reflected at recommendation 2.3, or is it more than that? Just as a starter, Chair.
Okay, who'd like to take that?
That's the amount of interest that has been recognised in the revenue account for the year.
Councillor Callers, you wish to come back?
Thank you. Just in regards to all of our borrowing, so it's been recognised in our revenue, but what I'm saying is that the interest that we are paying in regards to all the borrowings that we have, or is it considerably more than that?
That's just for external debt. It doesn't include our PFI and PPP contracts.
Okay, with that, Councillor Brodie.
Yeah, just a question on 5.6, compliance with Treasury limits and prudential indicators. It said, due to unexpected cash flows during the year, the total balance held at the Bank of Scotland exceeded the £20 million counterparty limit set out in the Council's Treasury policy. So there's 6 incidents where this happened, and we took quick action to rectify this, but is there any consequences of exceeding these limits?
Thank you, Councillor Brodie. Mr. York.
There's no consequences on exceeding the limits. But basically, it's a limit we set ourselves just for working practices. Later on in the report, there's actually a recommendation that we review these limits. The limits were set with the Bank of Scotland. It was basically a 10 million limit for cash flow purposes and a 10 million limit which we've got with other banks for investment purposes. And so we've got a 20 million limit there. The actual breach in most cases was only within £100,000, and it was due to cash coming in later in the day once we had a forecast. I'm going to say we're in the process of reviewing the limits. They've been there for several years, and the amount of money that comes in and out on a daily basis now justifies a review.
Thank you for that. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. It's on page 30, the ratio of financing costs to the net revenue stream. Obviously, this gives us the proportion of our revenue budget effectively going towards servicing liabilities. And I presume that includes what Councillor Carruthers was referring to earlier in terms of that will include the 2 asterisks representing the PFI and PPP in terms of including other long-term liabilities. But the question is actually around that percentage in terms of proportion of our revenue. I mean, looking forward, do we have a kind of target that we would sort of say, well, actually, given pressures that are going to be in future potentially revenue budgets, what's a safe target? I mean, are we trying to keep that within a certain percentage, or is that something that we're constantly working towards?
We don't currently have a target for this particular indicator, although it is a measure of the affordability of the capital programme. That's certainly something that we'll take into consideration as we're reviewing our treasury management practices.
Are you happy?
Happy enough, Chair, thank you.
Okay, we better not get too philosophical. Councillor Carruthers.
Councillor Thompson, I are on the same wavelength today in regards to this, because I think I was looking at the forward agendas for full council. I think we're looking at treasury management strategies. A couple of strategies coming forward here, and just going back to what Councillor Thompson, that particular question. Do we look to borrow more? Are we looking to, I suppose from an official's point of view, because naturally I look at it, you think, how on earth do we get this borrowing down the best way we can, the quickest way we can? Because the more we spend on interest, the less we spend on potholes, care at home, so on and so forth. So what is the long-term vision in regards to addressing this level of debt? Or do you think it's an appropriate level of debt? Interest would be paying? I mean, that's the kind of question that's going through my mind. It sounds like it is through Councillor Thompson's as well. So I know I'm talking about a future report to a different actual meeting of the council, but I just kind of wondering what the officials are thinking in regards to that, Chairman.
I think Mr. Garrett is attracting my attention.
Thank you, Chair. I think firstly it's important to recognise that the Council has agreed a 10-year capital investment strategy. That investment strategy has been based on what we view as an affordable level of capital borrowing each year. Your revenue account and your capital account are now very closely linked, and we actually take into account the level of borrowing costs coming from the capital investment strategy into the revenue account on an annual basis. You will see the ratio of debt financing to the revenue budget is projected to increase slightly over the upcoming period, particularly because of the Dumfries Learning Town investment, but that's part of an integrated strategy you've got between both your revenue and capital account based on what we see as a long-term level of affordable borrowing. So that's something we've already looked at. But we'll continue to provide further details on that as we continue to monitor the programmes as we go forward.
Appreciate the clarification. Thank you very much. Have we any other questions? Okay, in that case, we'll move to the recommendations. Members content that we have considered 2.1 and, I beg your pardon, I'm in the wrong place. We note noting 1 through 5, effectively. Excellent. Moving on to item 6, Workforce Establishment and Sickness Absence Metrics Annual Report. This report presents us with the latest position in relation to the workforce establishment and sickness absence information as at 1st April 2017. The report reflects on the efforts which have gone into providing members with higher quality information on our workforce profile along with data analysis. Significant activity has been focused on our maximising attendance initiative, and this has seen a positive impact on numbers of days lost, although more still needs to be done in order to meet our absence rate targets. Work is ongoing to develop a revised policy with organisational development, working alongside managers and trade unions. I'm also delighted to confirm that the Council has attained the Healthy Working Lives Gold Award in recognition of our work to support a healthy workforce. And this, of course, is the culmination of some 7 years of work. I think it's appropriate that we congratulate officers, trade union officials and members who have been involved in achieving this. Stuart Clanahan and Paul Clarkin are here to answer any questions on the report, and I'll open that to members. Councillor Driver.
Thanks very much, Ian. Obviously, as the elected member champion, while I was outside having a smoke and a pint, the other guys were getting on with the work, so healthy working lives was really important. But I think the work that the actual group actually does is at its start, and we will see benefits from that as we actually go forward. And I think there'll be a reduction in the absences that we see for some of those cases, especially in the mental health issues, because of the Healthy Working Lives agenda that's actually going forward there. There is a correlation, of course, between mental health absence and physical health absence, and if we improve the physical health of the staff, then you will see a correlation of improvement going forward. So, I mean, I was really pleased when the council actually got the Gold Award. It was mainly, I was mainly in there listening to all this good work that was going on and perhaps a forward in presentation, but I want to thank all the officers that were actually there doing that particular work.
Thank you for that, Councillor Driver. Councillor Ferguson.
Archie's actually said most of what I was going to say. The other thing was that we did ask him over a period of meetings ago to have a simplified, easy to read version containing relevant information, and I have to say this was first class. And it's exactly a model for the future. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the comment. It is a significant improvement, which I certainly welcome. Councillor Carruthers.
I would echo the sentiments that Councillor Ferguson and yourself in regards to being a good report, easy to read, easy to understand, the right level of information is there. In regards to the particular points that I was wanting to pick up, some of them have been covered, but ultimately, when it comes to I think it's really about the healthy living lifestyles. How do we monitor that we're actually practicing as the leaders within the council, leadership? How do we monitor that we're actually practicing what we're preaching here, Chairman? Maybe Archie alluded to that a wee bit as part of his discussion. I mean, I think that was one of the. I did criticise the EEI committee earlier on in the week. Our sickness absence is high compared to our targets. We're about 11.5, 12. Should be nearer the 9. Teachers are actually doing better, but I think I should also put that on board as well. Kind of mention that we need to be looking to address that, make sure we're heading in the right direction. Healthy body, healthy mind. Archie's alluded to that as well. So I think ultimately we need to certainly be heading in the right direction. I think we probably are in regards to the report. We'll pick that up as the monitoring reports come forward. But how do we actually monitor actually ourselves and our directors, chief executives, so on, the leadership within the council are actually practicing what we preach in regards to this? I think it's important that we do, and we recognise that, Chairman.
Minus 3 stone and counting, Councillor Carruthers. I'm delighted you noticed and somewhat flattered. I don't know. Anybody would like to make a comment on that? Yes?
Thank you, Chair. It's just to reaffirm the position that, as Councillor Driver said, we're in the commencement of the journey. We have a 3-year working action plan that we're currently finalising to support the strategy. And I think it's only appropriate to bring update reports to this committee and to advise of progress against the action plan periodically as we make it through that 3-year period.
Just want a really small, not so much a response, but paragraph 3.12, just to remind us, have we still got we used to have a scheme in place where our employees could buy a bicycle and help them. Is that scheme still in place? It isn't mentioned there, but I think cycling is something that's mentioned to me on many occasions, something I do myself, up with and away for the council, but a number of members of staff and other elected members have actually said, what about the cycling programme used to be, is it still there?
I recall the scheme. Can we clarify that?
As far as I'm aware, Councillor, the scheme is still available. There were some changes to tax legislation over the past 12 to 18 months, but some schemes were retained because of their added value, and that's one of them.
Okay, Councillor Maitland.
Point's been covered. Thank you, Chairman. I'll pick it up later on in the agenda.
Okay, Councillor Nicholl. Councillor Nicholl.
Thank you, Chair. Just in page 36, number of younger employees aged under 20 has reduced from previous years of 0.26% of the workforce compared to 0.6%. It says, it goes on to say that they've moved on, they've gone out of the younger age group, but are we stopped recruiting, or is it a deliberate policy not to bring in under 20-year-olds?
I certainly don't believe it would be a deliberate policy, but...
Leader, I think it's a mix of things. They've moved to the next age band, but certainly we're still going through the end of the 250 opportunity provided on modern apprentices. There's still 38 still under the programme. We've had 93 completers, and there's also who've gained employment with the council, and 76 further who went on to education or further, and obviously we're running graduate schemes too. So there's a whole mix of things going. We've not ignored that, but we're currently waiting to see what the outcome of the levy funding is, and we can then plan based on that. So at the moment we have a plan, as they say, but we're not able to act on it yet.
Okay, you're content with that. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. Well, again, to echo the sentiments of other members, I enjoyed reading this report, and there's a wealth of information here. I think one of the things I would maybe ask for is it possible, in terms of the absence, and to maybe delve into the gender and age aspects of that, because that wasn't as explicit in the report, although it may actually provide clues or pointers as to how to target more effective back to work and support. The other thing was, we heard on Tuesday from the Director of the Economy, Environment and Infrastructure Committee that there was an upward trend in absence in EEI when the question was asked, and I was just wondering that, how did we tackle that as a council overall, given that this is actually, in a lot of senses, quite a positive report in terms of going in the right direction.
Thank you, Councillor. In terms of more detail and more insight towards some of the absence information, then the gender and age information is already available, so we can produce that and let members see that. In terms of upward trends, what we're finding is, because of the strategy that we're referring to within the report, we're tackling those upward trends, and we're ensuring that with the right leadership and management and support approach out there, we're dealing with those and ensuring that we try to stop the upward trend, and if possible, reduce that upward trend. So there's a lot of resource, there's a lot of energy going into ensuring that we continue to reduce absence in the medium to longer term. We don't want to see just a reduction this year, but we want to continue to see the good work going forward into future years.
Councillor Thompson, you want to come back?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So in specific relation to the EEI report, though, it's really just a sort of, how do you tackle that? Because that seems to be, at the moment, letting the side down, as it were.
We have, there's a number of initiatives that are available, and there's dedicated HR support to each directorate, and where the advice is required in terms of process and policy and what the legal position is, we will provide that. We also report our information to directors on a monthly basis, and that allows for discussions at senior management teams. And as part of those discussions at senior management teams, there's also HR representation around the table. It's very much a joined up approach. And if we see the trends and the patterns there, we have the ability to communicate those to directorates, but equally where they see those patterns for themselves, then we're right in there helping to support them. Obviously, I don't want to miss out on the trade union support as well, because the employees have got that available to them. And in terms of absence management, we work very closely with the trade unions, as do the directorates on that. So that gives an indication of the type of support and interventions that we're trying to do to reduce those slightly higher levels of absence that we have.
Thank you. Councillor Driver.
Yeah, just coming back on what Councillor Thompson says, and it's an example more than anything else. I mean, it's a carers policy. We didn't really know how many carers there was in the council. So when there was a bit of a survey done and also highlighting that there is a carers policy within the council, as you'll see in 3.12, there were 92 carers. We had a presentation from one of those carers at one of our meetings, and what he basically said was, prior to knowing about the carers policy, he would take time off work because he had to, because he was caring. It may have been sickness absence, it may have been annual leave, but he had to do that because his son had a high tariff of care required. Because of the carers policy now, he can come to work, talk to his line manager, get time off. It will not be classed as an absence now because he's actually using the carers policy to his benefit. And that's potentially, over those 92 carers, an opportunity to reduce absence overall because they're using the carers policy. And that's just one policy in many policies that the Healthy Working Life Group were actually looking at. So, as Stuart actually says, this is the start of that journey of making people aware of all these different policies. Those family-friendly, healthy working life policies are actually going to help people, in the future. And where before we may have classed it as an absence, it may no longer be classed as an absence, but because of the policy it's actually in there.
I think it's a very useful illustration, much appreciated. Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks. I'm the polar opposite for the question that Graham asked. I'm at the higher end of the age spectrum here. I'm looking on page 50, when you're seeing age range and gender. A huge number of the council workforce is 50, 59, 60 plus. And I'm actually wondering, what are we doing to ensure they stay fit, healthy, and want to stay in work? And without debating the whole pension policy for the United Kingdom, is the impact that not going to be able to retire till 66 or 67 or whatever it's going to be in the future. Are we future-proofing our approach here? Because my real worry is there's over 2,000 staff in the 50 to 59 age group, and we're only talking a few years down the road here, and all of a sudden we've got another explosion of people retiring or wanting to leave. I do appreciate it's a conveyor belt, yeah, but how are our healthy working policies affecting the older workforce, and particularly those who are doing jobs that are suffering from musculoskeletal injuries or repetitive things? Because there's a risk there as well. So I'll be happy to hear what they've got to say.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. It is something that we're aware of and we're building into the policies going forward in terms of healthy working lives. We do appreciate that with age there is a potential risk, increased risk for ill health. However, where we want to focus our energy is ensuring that there's an expansion of flexible working opportunities for all staff, because of the valued skills and expertise that people have. And also, as the report outlines, we've increased the spend in occupational health services over the last 12 months, and we're seeing the benefits of that additional support within the wider workforce. And I think we would want to see that continue to be a focus for future interventions. I think it's also worth mentioning as well, in terms of musculoskeletal, in the last 12 months we've seen a 50% increase in the use of physiotherapy support through occupational health, and I think that's a very positive message.
Okay. Councillor Maitland.
Thank you. I welcome, along with other members, the initiatives that have gone into helping the workforce in the council. But from the point of view of public perception, why should I think that these initiatives here are going to have any different effect upon the figures that we've looked at for the last 15 years? If I was to go back to reports dealing with absence management when we first came and looked at this on a serious basis, I should think probably the words and phrases that we're using here are very similar. So I'd like to know why there's going to be a difference now as to in the past.
The landscape as far as absence levels, I can remember, and it's not that long ago, we're talking 210, 211 were 15 days. We're at 12.66 last year. We're now at 11.73. So although there's nuances between what we're trying and what we're continuing to do, it's what other authorities are doing with some success. So we're tracking their progress and we're tracking our own progress. But it's going to take time because it's difficult. We're actually identifying more absence now than we ever were. So to come back from that and actually reduce the new level of absence we're identifying, our reporting procedures are there. We're also looking at initiatives such as getting more real-time information. So to pick up on the questions that councillors previously asked about what are we doing for EEI, we'll actually track those absences, and we're also looking at the trends and looking at forecasting what that might mean on an individual employee basis. So we're using a whole series of tools there, and we're working with increased vigour with the trade unions. There's been an awful lot of case management has gone on in the last 12 to 18 months, and that's what's actually driven the absence levels down from 12.66 to 11.73 for the year just gone.
But were we not doing that before?
We were doing much of it before. We're putting far more energy into it, and actually that's sometimes what it takes, because at the end of the day, we've hundreds of managers out there. Their responsibility is to manage the absence effectively. So the basic tools were there, but we're continuing to refine those. That's all any employer can do.
By all means.
So do we anticipate then a downward trend? I mean, are you promising that to us?
I'm saying
that's a $64 million question, isn't it not?
I'm saying that we're forecasting an improving trend on the basis that we can't go from 12 down to 9 days immediately, but we're on a programme we're hoping will deliver on that. And I'm happy to bring additional information if members want to check on specific aspects of that through the journey.
Thank you for that. Councillor Marshall.
But just on that same point with Jane, because obviously I've been a council at the same time as well, and it has been an ongoing issue, but there is an encouraging trend the right way. But apart from actually just improving things as well, I think what the council has done, and because it was raised and members have raised it as well, is when there's been an issue, then that's been identified and rectified. The one that springs to mind was, if you can remember, the long-term sickness with regards to it was the requirement to get to see occupational health to actually then get a return to work, permission. And so we put in measures to actually improve that, because that was a problem area. So I take it that it's not only just an ongoing improvement thing, but also identifying areas that need attention and actually dealing with them.
Chairman, we're looking at increased spend in terms of the things that are actually causing some issues there. Physiotherapy was that an example of that. And we're also turning around referrals more quicker than ever.
Okay, any further questions? In that case, we will turn to the recommendations. Are we content that we've considered it 2.1? Councillor Carruthers.
Chairman, I just wanted to ask, because of the debate that we've had, should we actually put in a 2.2? I think 2.1 is absolutely fine, but 2.2, I like to think we're finishing on a high in regards to not undermine at all the achievement in recommendation 2.3, but just to recognise that we are expecting, and I think there's a lot of information in paragraph 3.9 in regards to how we're performing against what we want to be, but just even to note the expectation from the committee that we'll look to see improvements as we come forward. I think we need to have something there, but again, other members are happy to join in, but I think we need to recognise that because of the debate we've had, that we need to, we've got a clear expectation that these will improve.
That has prompted another flurry of members looking to get in. Councillor Ferguson and then Councillor Driver.
I would say, I had my hand up way earlier. I would like to add in the 2.2 is actually applaud and commend the work that's taken place, which has resulted in the attainment. Because we need to recognise this has been done by the staff themselves, and it's not something that we should be proud that the staff have actually managed to do it. but we need to recognise it's the staff themselves that have come up with this.
Thank you very much. In agreement with that, Councillor Dryber, then I'll bring you back in.
I would agree, but just coming back to Ian's point, I think in 2.1, when we're considering the workforce establishment report, Ian, I think there was a lot of actions here that I'm sure Stuart and Paul has taken from that to come forward, you know, with the reports on absence and how we're trying to improve those things in future reports. I think he certainly, Paul mentioned that a few times, so I don't know if there's a need for that recommendation, but certainly on that 2.2, it's the attainment of the healthy working life thing that's the issue, and I agree with Andy on that particular thing. But I think the issues you're talking about have been taken as action points anyway.
I'm sorry, I hadn't made myself clear. I meant moving 2.2 to a 2.3, so we did not undermine that whatsoever. And the 2.2 would just be to note the expectations from the committee. Sorry, I should have made that clearer. I wasn't trying to change 2.2 whatsoever, just try to slide it down to 2.3. But if the committee thinks that the actions have been picked up through the minuting process, I just thought it'd be good that, because of the level of debate we've had, that the committee recognises that we send a clear message, we've scrutinised it properly, send a clear message to our officials to say, listen, there's a clear expectation for this committee that we've seen improvements from what it is at this moment in time.
Councillor Dryber, you want to come back on that point?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that again. I just didn't want to move away from that attainment side of things. And I don't think Stuart's got any issues with that either. I mean, we would like to see an improvement in that, and I think things we're putting in place will probably see an improvement with that, but you'll never know when you get a big virus coming along. That's the only issue I would say in that one, you know.
Okay, can we just then get clarity on the new wording that we're looking at? I think we probably will have consensus on this. At 2.2, we were adding in along the lines that Councillor Ferguson had mentioned, which I'm very much in sympathy with, and adding in a new 2.3. Lorna, if you have a formal word.
I think if I'm understanding the comment that was made was really to note members' expectation of further improvement in sickness absence rates.
And 2.2 adds effectively our congratulations to the staff, trade unions, etc., who were involved. Yeah. If everyone is content with that, we shall move on to item 7. This is the Procurement Annual Report for financial year 2016-17. This report provides a summary of the main procurement activity and progress against the objectives of the procurement strategy during the last financial year. I do welcome the early adoption of this approach to producing an annual report, which reflects the recommendations adopted by full council arising from the Scrutiny Committee review, and also illustrates the importance that we are placing on supporting local businesses and the economy through our procurement policy. The approval of new procurement standing orders, the development and approval of a new sustainable procurement policy, and increased spend with local suppliers, which I was very pleased indeed to see actually places the council in the top 10 local authorities in Scotland, are just some of the areas of positive progress which are highlighted in the report. Karen Scott, the Procurement and Commissioning Manager, is here to answer questions, and I'll open this up to members. Flurry of hands. Councillor Carruthers.
Thanks, Chairman. I was looking forward to this one coming because I thought when I get this I'll be able to really criticise the procurement department within the council, but actually when I read this it was first class. It was what an improvement compared to what we've been seeing in the past. I can only commend this report and the restructure. And a couple of things I would like to just, I suppose, point out, and maybe we'll get to it at some point in the future. I mean, when you look at page 66, you've got the structure there and the establishment, you could say. I just wonder, is that strong enough, big enough, so to speak? We'll find out in due course if that's the case. And the other thing I think was brought up through the Scrutiny Committee, I attended every single local authority on site visit in regards to taking on board as a member of that Scrutiny Committee. And the one thing that we haven't implemented, I've mentioned this many times in the past, is an actually overarching, whether it's a full committee or a subcommittee or this committee, to actually look at procurement and take it really serious. And that it was obvious and clear by the evidence that was put in front of us at the Scrutiny Committee, that made a big difference. And I still believe that should be the case. So I'll maybe win that argument at some point in the future, Chairman, but I think, like same as yourself, with the 25%, I think it's up to 29% in regards to an effect in the local economy. Better effect on, obviously, the local economy. That's fantastic to see. There's a lot of other things in here you could pick at. The details incredibly good. Like I say, it's been very open and very transparent. So I would commend this report, Chairman, same as yourself.
Okay, thank you for that. And the specific question on resourcing, I think.
In relation to resource, obviously I've been in post for just over a year now, and so in terms of the structure, one of the things I'm keen to do is actually been to ascertain what our ongoing requirements are, and actually do a full review of what our delegated procurement authority structure is across the council. So that review work's been the priority over the last year, so we've now got that information which has actually enabled the provision of the reports that you're seeing come forward today. So the next step is to actually start looking at that and actually looking at what's fit for purpose and what do we need to resource, either through a corporate structure or through a further review of how the devolved procurement structure operates at the moment, and actually having some form of forums and things. One of the things we have done in the meantime has been to set up some forums to actually look at commissioning services predominantly in the first instance, to actually try and build on that consistency and to actually train and support officers that are actually at the moment with delegated procurement authority but sitting within operational service departments. But thank you.
Okay, Archie?
So thanks very much, Chair. I have to agree with your point of being 10th in the top 10% in Scottish councils on procurement. I think when you look at things like city deals and the amount of things that other councillors are getting compared to Dumfries and Galloway, being in the top 10% is actually quite a good thing. I also have to say that, with the procurement policies that we now have in place, I think there's greater opportunities for enterprise and services going out there and getting some work in. But I think more importantly is what some people don't understand is that through this service we have, certainly in enterprise and D&G, 450 SMEs in this region who rely on things like the contract with Lorburn to ensure that they actually stay afloat. So there's 450 small to medium enterprises in Dumfries and Galloway who are looking at our procurements as sort of best practice because they're getting that massive benefit out of them and actually keeping them in business in a lot of cases. So I like Ian, I was looking forward to this report and I'm pleased with it, and it's actually good to see this in front of us.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just welcome this report. I echo the sentiments of the previous two speakers. Just a couple of clarifications, though, on page 86 and page 87. At the bottom of 86, it's under recruitment, advertising and public information. It's a 2-year contract, and that's got 12 million. And then under the framework for general stationery, we've got a 3-year contract at 72 million. I thought we'd maybe recruited a Premier League player and maybe paying him under stationery. But can you just clarify those figures?
Can we clarify those figures? They seem quite large.
Sorry, yep. To clarify, the 72 million figure in the stationery is actually the national contract value. It's not just ours. Because we're using through that, we select that through an option in the public contract registers. So, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
What a relief. Councillor Maitland.
Thank you very much. Yes, I was very pleased to see this report, and I think it's rather a clear laying out delivery of procurement improvements action plan. I think it is very clear. I would like to know on page 69, how can we tell what is going on with respect to collaborative procurement activity? How do we know what impact we're having and how successful we're being?
Okay.
At the moment, historically, in terms of collaborative activity, we've generally focused on the utilisation of the national contracts through Scottish Procurement and Scotland Excel. So we do receive a range of reports on a quarterly basis, both through Scotland Excel and Scottish Procurement, to allow us to actually monitor how successful they're proven to be for us. And I meet with Scotland Excel on a quarterly basis to review the findings of those reports. So that's something that I would expect going forward that I can factor into the quarterly reports that first of which is scheduled later on the agenda for today. So that's something that can be built in there. One of the other actions that has been a priority for us has actually been looking at how do we lead on collaborative activity and what can we do more at a local level, looking at neighbouring local authorities or more so actually looking at NHS and the housing associations within the region either to formally collaborate on our contract activity, collaborate through resource, coming on to the earlier question as well, what can we do more jointly together, and also how can we work to support the suppliers, because ultimately we're all using the same suppliers, so to make sure we're planning together and not creating any capacity issues within the supply chain. So that's one of our kind of focuses that I'm pushing at the moment with my counterparts and other local authorities and public sector organisations.
Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Really welcome this report, and there's a lot of information there that's actually quite refreshing to be able to read. A couple of questions just relating to, well, page 73, for example. On the right-hand column, it's talking about a wider review of the delegated procurement authority across the council being required, and similarly, page 75, developing and implementing a contract strategy which supports organisation-wide approach to sourcing, etc. So basically, there's a few things in there that are sort of ongoing or will be required, and it was just really to get a sense of, so when will that, what do we need to do now to ensure those things happen? And just on the same page there, page 75, the quick quote aspect of encouraging small businesses maybe to go into the public Contract Scotland process. Obviously, that's something that we want to see and encourage more small businesses in the area to participate in that, so that they can actually not see it as a challenge, actually getting, tendering for work or whatever, and actually making it proportionate to the size of business, because we have a lot of small businesses who might see it as a hurdle rather than an opportunity. So how are we being supportive in that? And similarly, not similarly at all actually, Annex A and Annex B, when I was reading them, I understand that part of that is a requirement we have to sort of publish certain information. But on reading through the two of them, obviously there's a few in Annex A which there's a quote that comes up a lot, which is the to be determined at time of contracts called off under framework agreement, which I suspect is a historical thing which we've had to publish. And then of course a few of those come up in the Annex B for those particular ones. So it was really just to understand from the point of the layman reading this, what does that actually mean and how should we interpret it? So there's a couple of points in there, but thank you.
That number of points in there, if you can take them up, or as many as you can.
Okay, thanks. On the first question in terms of how do you know where within the action plan updates, where work's been identified as ongoing, updates on that are things that obviously is work in progress at the moment, and I would intend to present in terms of the updates coming through the quarterly P&R performance reports to give you the peace of mind that work is ongoing. In relation to the quick quotes and the support of the local businesses, I've spent some time with colleagues in economic development and the supplier development programme to actually make sure we've got a tailored approach to making sure that the support is there for small businesses. The procurement standing orders obviously have now mandated that we have 50% of local businesses involved in the quick quotes, but do recognise that actually we need to make sure we're getting the responses through. So it's not necessarily present at the moment within the reports, but one of the performance indicators that I'm monitoring myself at the moment is how many are actually registered, because historically we've been very good at getting local businesses registered onto PCS, but actually trying to transpose that into, well, how many are then submitting offers and how many are then winning contracts and what's happening at those gaps in between. So my plan is to do a bit of survey work with those suppliers that are already registered but are not necessarily bidding, to find out what is the barriers and what can we do so that actually the training we're delivering is not the standard sort of off-the-shelf stuff and targeting issues that are actually preventing those suppliers from bidding, because you can see from some of the other reports, the later report today, we have quite a difference between the number that are registered and the number that actually submit offers to the council. So that's one of the kind of key things to address that. In terms of your point in relation to the annexes around information to be determined at the time of the call-off, obviously we do, these are relating to frameworks that we've actually set up ourselves. So, for example, the Care at Home is one that's used throughout, and so we don't know at the moment what the actual split will be across the providers. So we've got an overarching value that's been published within the award notice, but we haven't actually got that breakdown at the moment in terms of what that will look like for each of the individual providers, but that again is something that will be published on an annual basis. So that's information that will be available at a later date.
Okay, Stephen, you want to come back?
Yeah, I'm just, I don't know if I want to ask this, but in terms of the Care at Home contracts. I mean, obviously, we went through an exercise in last October, which was to commission Care at Home, and now we're operating under the direction of the IJB for certain service delivery. And I would imagine those contracts are renewed. It'll be IJB that'll determine that, and not ourselves. So, is that part of the piece of work that you're sort of doing in terms of how we best understand and present that?
I guess ultimately the IJB will be utilising the council's frameworks and the council's contracts. It's been set up in such a way that the IJB can instruct through that. So it's a case of making sure we get that reporting and things in place between ourselves and IJB so that that information comes through.
Okay, members, I was going to ask for any other questions. Councillor Ferguson.
It's just to kind of build on that last part there. I see in the Cabinet, in the second last bullet point of 3.5, you're exploring opportunities to collaborate with other public sector organisations. I'm assuming one of them will be the NHS. And I'm just trying to find out, I suppose, where we are looking at the potential for shared services or things that every big organisation has to do that obviously could be more efficient in terms of procurement and better run if they were under one roof. I'll come back to you outside the room about the IGB because it's not my understanding what the IGB role is. But if you just maybe give us an update on where you are looking at shared services between us and the NHS.
Okay.
At the moment, we've all just provided a commitment to have these discussions and actually bring along our contract work plans and our current resourcing arrangements. I'm aware of the procurement resource within the NHS is actually under a NHS Scotland-wide review at the moment. So I had a meeting, I was at a meeting yesterday at a national level to actually look at what the proposed structure is around there. So these are conversations that have been that will happen at a regional level across Scotland in terms of the NHS. I've had previous discussion with Katie Lewis at a local level around what limited resource she actually has in relation to procurement activity, but I guess it's not been, we've not had much more of a discussion at this stage until we find out more around the NHS sort of organisational national plans, and I guess that comes to that will influence any local and regional discussions that are even possible to have.
Councillor Nicholl.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's not my ward, but it is a parochial thing to Wigtonshire. Stranraer Loch Conservation Area Regeneration Scheme, £164,750 has been allocated for that. The contract started 14 months ago, and we've been looking at the Stranraer waterfront for 10 years, and we've seen nothing in the last year. And I'm wondering if this payment is an upfront payment, or it's a phased payment, or is it a payment on results? And that information would be, the people in Stranraer and the Far West are totally and utterly at their wits' end with this scheme, the regeneration scheme for the waterfront, because we're looking at, Beirut could look better in many a day than the waterfront looks, and we need to be doing something about it. It's a piece of nonsense. Welcome an answer.
Sympathise with the need to make progress in Stranraer waterfront. Perhaps you can give us some information on the specifics. If not here, then direct to the member after the meeting. If you'd be content with that. Excellent. Members, are there any other questions? We'll move to the recommendations, in which we are asked to note the content of the procurement annual report for financial year 2016-17. Councillor Carruthers.
Thanks, Chairman. Thanks for your forbearance. I just wondered, going back to the point I made earlier, I do think this would substantiate, this agenda item substantiate its own committee. So I just wondered, just so we've got the processes clear, can we actually do that, appoint a subcommittee through this committee? Has it got to go back to review standing orders committee? Has it got to go to full council? I just wonder if we've got an idea. I haven't front-loaded this question, but it's an opportunity, Chairman, so I'm taking it. Here it is, it's in front of us again. I've been beating this drum for quite a while, so quite keen to see if we can actually get a standalone committee for this, to take it seriously.
I admire your consistency, and also the I always have sympathy with members looking to hang a coat on a sugar peg. I've done it many times myself. Give some advice on how that might be considered. Advised it would be a matter for the Standing Orders Subcommittee.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll take it through that route. Thank you.
Okay, are we then content? We will note the content of the annual report. Thank you. Moving on to item 8. Director's End of Year Assessment of Business Plan Performance Corporate Services 2016-17. This report gives members an assessment of the 16-17 end of year progress on delivery of the 2016 to 2018 business plan for corporate services and includes detailed information on health and safety performance. Business Plan 1618 contains a total of 39 key performance indicators and 22 improvement projects. Appendix 1 to the report provides a summary of the year-end performance. The exception reports are attached at Appendices 2 and 3, and these provide further information on indicators and projects which are not performing as expected, as well as details of planned improvement actions being taken to improve the situation. Lorna and her team are here to answer any questions on the report. Members, Councillor Dryburgh.
Thanks very much, Chair. I think it comes back to the same point that comes to every director's, and it's about the percentage of staff who've completed an annual performance development review, because I think that's really important, again, coming back to the earlier report on attendance, people understanding where they are and what they actually do for the council and where they are within the plan for the council. And this is one of the ones where we see on a regular basis where there's the red dot. What actions are you taking to ensure this goes up? I'm sure that what's happened with the absence management and all that's going to help this particular thing. But I would really like to see an improvement in this, and I'm just wondering, as part of that process, can we see where we are in 6 months when you come back with your half-yearly report?
Okay. Thank you for that, Lorna.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of corporate services, absolutely, it's not good enough. We've had a drop in where we would expect it to be and where we have been over the last few years. And it's no excuses, but some of the reasons have been the changes around teams and structures and recruiting managers and making sure those managers can give a proper PDR rather than something cursory as they took up post. I've focused on that with the DMT, and we're really focused on that in terms of the 6-monthly report, so you should see a vast improvement for corporate services. I'll ask Paul maybe to talk about the wider council around that as well.
Okay, thank you.
I think, as member will have seen for some of the departmental or directorate reports, that a theme across most services at this point, or directorates, is actually to do with the process of restructure. It's having a big impact at the moment. But there's a whole series of things in there, and we're actually, as ODHR, going through a PDR refresh scheme to make the scheme more fit for purpose, simplified, proper links to one-to-ones, and really just making sure that there's a true link with competencies in there. Now, that's not going to drive completion rates directly, but it should actually aid the process in terms of the time it actually takes, particularly with the managers who are responsible for large groups of people. But I think the main thing on the landscape at the moment is the process of restructure throughout the council as a result of shape, and that has impacted, and we've seen that affect not only corporate services but other services too.
Okay, any other member? Stephen.
Thanks, Chair. Much as we can be glad we were sort of top 10 in terms of the last report, I think we have to recognise, again, it's back to absence levels where we're over 10% above the Scotland-wide average in terms of the 11.73 compared to 10.69 days. And I think it's really just to reinforce the message that members had in the previous item 6, I think it was, just that we really do want to see an improvement here, because it's not a great advert. And similarly with the PDR aspect, I mean, there's also the stage 2 complaint process within this report as well. These are all to do with staff, and processes relating to staff and their well-being and the resolution of things within our council. So I really think we have to make extra effort so that staff know that they are actually valued, I think, and then maybe the figures will make an improvement.
Okay, Mr. Claren.
I think there's quite on page 136 we've set out a large number of specific improvement actions. Healthy culture, we've discussed that under healthy working lives. We're looking at the practice of managers just in terms of specific improvements. We're holding managers to account directly for that. We're targeting hotspots, and we've actually embarked on more case management over the last 12 to 18 months than we have for some years. We're also giving a high priority to things like looking at ensuring targets and deadlines and workloads are reasonable, given the fact we're also reducing staff at the same time, and ensuring that the other policies act to support our staff and not only to take any draconian action that might be necessary. That we're actually looking at inter-team surveys and considering the full impact of organisational change on people. We're continuing to train managers on absence management and to improve their practice. So we're doing a number of things, and we're actually leading on case management. And as you can see from the reduction from 12.66 days to 11.73, managers are actually getting the message.
Okay. Councillor Brodie.
Thanks, Chair. Just echoing what Councillor Driver said about the professional development review. It's something that I've raised especially at civil committee, about the failure to increase the numbers. The numbers are going down, as has been said. There's some action points, but I think it's important that we do the PDRs properly, put a set in the diary at the beginning of the year so it's there. It shows that we value our employees, and also that we're interested in their performance and their professional needs. Well, I'd refer you to page 149, which is the exception report on the percentage of members satisfied with the service as measured through the member satisfaction survey. It's quite a dramatic drop there of satisfaction from 90% to 72.5%, and that's obviously probably ties in with the lack of the reducing number of resources, but I think it's something that members should be concerned about, and senior managers. Most of the officers engaged with are very helpful, but it's becoming more and more that I'm writing letters that I'm disappointed that I haven't received this email, that an action which had been agreed has not taken place. So I know that this survey is a corporate sort of survey, but I think I've been in the council just over 10 years, and I don't think any of the service managers have engaged directly with elected members to gauge how their service measures up, and the service from their managers meets the needs of council. So maybe that's something to consider, is that the actual service managers engage with the councillors and see how their staff can improve their support for staff, for councillors.
I'll bring Rona in on this specific point.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Brodie. This particular survey is around governance support, so it was very much about the support that you get in terms of committee administration and the governance advice that you receive, and we would prefer to have, I think, more conversations about that around the groups to see what we can do better. I mean, only 10 members responded to our survey, which was a little bit disappointing for the staff, because they need that feedback to know how to improve. So in terms of this particular report, it is about governance advice. I don't know if the Director would like to say anything more about the wider council.
I mean, in terms of feedback from members about views about service contact, that's something I'll certainly take up with the other directors about how they might do that. I think it'll be different depending on which service, and obviously the contact, the ward officers. There's lots of different ways that we can do that, but I'll certainly take that on board and take that back to directors.
Councillor Brodie, you want to come
thank the director for that.
Councillor Nicholl, you seem to be indicating it was on the same point. It's not about IT, is it? That is a relief. In that case, Councillor Maitland.
Thank you. It's the item on page 128 to do with percentage of invoices sampled and paid. And I think this is incredibly important because this is about the council helping with cash flow for businesses. And I'd just like some reassurance that that there is action being taken. I see it's to do with Integra and various other gripping things, but could I possibly please have some confirmation that this has actually been sorted out and we're now back on trend?
Paul, you're going to take this one? Thank you.
Yeah, so certainly in the latter part of last year we had some difficulties. We moved to a new version of Integra, which resulted in a number of system difficulties, which resulted in a delay in payments for a spell. We addressed that in the short term by pushing more resources into the team to try and address the backlog. But subsequent to that, we've also looked at improving the processes. We've also addressed the large part of the system issues as well. Working in terms of providing assurance, we're back up well over 90%, I think it's about 93% for the current financial year to date, and we're seeing a further trend of improvement in that as the year progresses. So we have addressed those issues and we're looking to improve that further as we go forward.
Thank you for that. Councillor Milton, do you wish to come back?
That's fine, thank you very much.
Okay, very good. Councillor Nicholl?
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at the exception report, page 148. Total accommodation square metres per full-time equivalent staff, equivalent excluding schools and industrial. We've got a target of 15. Now, depending on the answer to the next bit of the question is there a national standard? And if there is a national standard and it's different from 15, how did we arrive at a figure of 15 square metres per full-time equivalent person?
I see.
My understanding is that was derived from the national standard, and the answer to the second question is probably once we get Dumfries asset plan and other properties sorted out and properties are vacated, we'll actually improve that statistic in terms of reducing the number of square metres per employee.
Could I just point out that probably in our group room it's about 3 square metres per person?
I don't think that's actually included, Chair.
You should know by now that the space standards don't apply to us. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. It's actually just going back to the point raised by Councillor Maitland about the invoice payments and the response. I actually think your target of 94% is quite ambitious, and the fact that you're improving up to 93% this year, I think, is excellent. It's a terrific performance for the size of organisation. But really what I'm going to be asking about, and this is slightly IT related, by the way, it's the P2P system and the integration with the other back office systems. And also, I would like to know how fast this is going, because this will deliver efficiencies in your department to a great extent. But also, I think it's potentially another thing that for a lot of very small suppliers could be a barrier to trade with the council, because a lot of very small businesses won't engage with this, and I would like a wee bit of reassurance perhaps that we're going to engage with some of these smaller businesses, perhaps through Business Gateway or whatever, to bring them on board with this. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Paul, you taking that?
Yep, certainly going forward that the P2P or purchase to pay exercise is something that we do see as part of the move to improve the processes to address some of the difficulties we've had to date and make sure there's greater efficiency going forward. We've actually set up a group within the council with heads of service and business managers to look at how we can best make use of this exercise. There is a recognition that we need to engage better with suppliers as part of that as well, and make sure that we're liaising closely with them as we take this forward, and we'll make sure that all concerns that are brought forward that are taken into consideration as we take that forward. But I can't see the detail of how we will address those concerns at this stage, because the exercise is still at a very early stage of development, but we'll certainly take those considerations into account.
Okay. Councillor Driver.
Thanks very much, and it's unusual for me and Councillor Brodie to agree twice in one particular week, never mind in one particular meeting. So I'll have to check my diary, see if there's something on this week or something, I don't know. Can I come to the percentage of stage 2 complaints? And it's on page 129 at the bottom and page 145 for the exemption report. There's some clarity on the value and target. and the potential, if we don't meet the target, for the responses, if there is anything that can happen to us from a national level, from you know, a governance perspective, but also if we have a target of stage 2 complaint of 80% and we get 60%, is that not a good thing? Because we're less than the target of complaints that we actually thought we were going to get.
Okay, Ronnie, you're going to take this one?
Yeah, okay.
No, that's the one above.
Yeah, these targets are based around the response time. So unfortunately, it's the other way around, that we say that we want to make sure that 80% of these stage 2s actually go out in our 21-day working day target. Now, we have agreed that that be the target in our policy. The SPSO know that, and it does reflect good practice that they recommend. However, what we always do is, if we're not going to meet that target, is explain to the person who has complained that, you know, why we're not going to do it, that, you know, that it could be quite a complex matter that we're going to have to look at, maybe a number of people to be spoken to as part of the investigation, etc. So the person who's complained will always know if we're not going to meet that target, and we'll have agreed another date with them to make sure they get the response in that time.
Okay, Councillor Ferguson.
It's on the same point, actually, and I'm not sure if I've picked up Archie's question wrong, but this is within responses with to make the complaints within a statutory timescale. What's the statute? And if it's a statute, why is it not 100%? If there's a statutory requirement to be done within that period, it should technically be 100%, else we might never reach it. And the second follow on from that is, what recourse do people have to go outside the council if we don't comply with this? I think that was the thrust of Archie's question. What are the implications for the council if we don't comply to these timescales?
Okay, Bruno?
Yeah, the recourse is to the SPSO, who, in the same way as a complaint, and we work really closely with the SPSO, and the SPSO do understand that not all complaints can be dealt with within that period. So there is provision, you know, for the extension. Perhaps that's not made clear here, that although we have that timescale, there is provision also for an extension to be given in extremely complex matters, and the SPSO understand that. We report that to them, and they're aware of our figures in this regard as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks again, Chair. It occurs to me that an efficient self-regulating system in a changing environment works best when there's a continuous feedback loop that helps inform how it develops into the future service delivery. So I'm looking at page 156, the exception report on customer feedback, which is pretty poor, really. And it was due on the 31st of March this year. Project progress was 30%. There's some improvement action sort of explained in there, but again, it's back to, if this is really a priority, and I would suspect it would be, what's the next due date? You know, how are we really actually addressing this? And when should we expect to see this progress at 100%?
Thanks. Bring Lorna in for this one.
Thank you, Chair. We set a target to develop our customer feedback within the whole of corporate services and the new management team. A number of aspects of that have been looking at the more fragmented customer feedback processes we use. So we use things like SOCITIM, SIPVA, benchmarking, different places like that. We've also got feedback from the members, some of the processes that we use separately. And we recognise that we need to bring something that deals with the whole of the service, and it's something that we can all contribute to, but also within the other directorates, something that helps coordinate and bring that together for them and helps bring some of the points together. So sickness absence, PDR, culture, finances, those things we need to understand need in a wider sense rather than on a kind of very operational sense as well. So we've done some work around that. We've started some work with the other directorates about what they expect from us, how we can get feedback and understand their needs better, how we can improve and support them in a better sense. And we're now starting to look at other aspects of customer, particularly members, and indeed some of the areas where we do have contact with the public through licensing, etc. So essentially, I think we gave ourselves a very tall order to deal with that within a year where we had 2 elections, a year where we had change. And so in the business plan we'll bring forward, we'll set out a much clearer view about the key stages that we intend to make over the next year or two, and some of the manifestations that we would hope to bring forward so members can see the development of that customer feedback. So we've done some groundwork, but we'll bring forward key milestones in the next business plan update for you to look at.
Okay. Stephen, you want to come back?
Yeah, no, thanks for that. So what would be the new due date?
We have a session with all managers next week, so I'll be asking them. But I think for me, we put in, as a management team, a year's work. It's clearly been a tall order for the team, so I would rather get them engaged, get their clarity and their view about what can be done and what the resources mean, and what are milestones, and I'll bring back that project plan as part of the business plan. You'll see those dates.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other member? In that case, we shall go to the recommendations. Are we content at 2.1? Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, just one thing. It's good to see that it's all right that we're scrutinising, and progress and what we're doing as priorities, and comment on the exceptions. That's right. It's also good to see as well that we're actually progressing well, and we should make some comment on that as well. We're progressing well in a lot of our priorities with providing the best start in our children. We're actually making good progress in the improvement project and protecting our most vulnerable. There's also the graduate placements. I think we should point out, that we've actually exceeded the target. The number of graduates that have progressed to a positive destination. 2016, we've actually got 100%, either 100%, either progressed into employment and further education. So I think we're doing well, and it's all right that we do scrutinise as well, and the exceptions, but should point out that we're doing well as well.
Absolutely, a very valid point, and certainly appreciate that. And perhaps we have a tendency to focus on, rightly, the things that need to be improved, and we maybe don't necessarily celebrate the things that we are doing well. We should give that some thought, particularly in how our staff regard that, if they are unfortunate enough to be watching these proceedings, or possibly even looking them up on YouTube afterwards, which I have myself never done yet, I have to admit, and no intention of doing so. Okay, at the recommendations, are we content at 2.1 we have reviewed, at 2.2 scrutinised, and at 2.3 are we content to note? Thank you. Item 9 is the Council Revenue Budget Monitoring Report 2017-18 for the period ended 31st July 2017. Report provides a summary of forecast expenditure for the Council up to the end of July 2017 and the measures being taken to manage budgets across services. It also provides a forecast of year-end general fund balances and the funding available to support investment in required savings through the Change Fund. The report also provides a first update on progress on delivery of the agreed savings, and officers have highlighted the challenges and risks associated with the unprecedented level of savings we have to achieve this year and the potential impact and mitigation of these risks. All measures are being taken to ensure that our budget is balanced for 2017-18. Paul and Karen are here to answer questions on the report. Members, any questions? Councillor Maitland.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Mrs. Grumpy again. I see in E and I that we both have a problem now in this year, and we got a problem last year. And I went back to the E and I papers to look and see what they had to say about the savings, and it simply says that the anticipated savings are less than the savings requirement. And that is the sum total of what I've been told as an interested member about why we didn't make any actions on the fleet and vehicle maintenance service review. And we have an equal problem with the depots and industrial buildings. And I just want to know what is actually happening with respect to EEI, because the problems are, as every member knows, and again, Mrs. Grumpy's going back 15 years when it was social work who were in my hair trigger sites, because as soon as one part of the council overspends, it means that pet projects and particularly favourite services, I think as a fellow elected member was saying, are under threat, because we have to make the savings somewhere. So really what I'm saying is, what are you as an administration actually doing actively to get a grip of this particular problem?
That, I think, is one for the chair of EEI. Councillor Dryborough.
I mean, this was actually discussed quite heavily at EEI, and quite rightly so, with regards to what's actually happening and how we're going to recover from that. EEI management team have actually got an action plan in place where they have already, as was discussed at EEI on Tuesday, made a saving of £170,000, something like that. But there is the option of the under recovery issue with regards planning and building warrants. So they're looking at that particular thing pretty heavily and seeing if we've actually got the appropriate targets in place, as well as, because of the economic decline in the region, there are no sort of big projects coming forward. It's mainly smaller ones, so there's less money coming in to the planning side of things. There is a report coming back in November with the remainder of the action plan, which members hopefully will agree at ENI, and the director, as I said already, started on that recovery plan already with sort of, I think it was 3 weeks into it, so it's already got in the region of 170,000 savings back already.
Councillor Maitland?
Well, I think you've got a mountain to climb. I fully understand about the under recovery of income, and I recognise what you're saying. But Chairman, the fact is that if one doesn't start very early on in the year to actually deal with the problems, it's very, very difficult to claw your way back. And I would just like to say that I can see that there's a problem brewing up here.
I hope we can offer you some reassurance that that's very much the approach that we're taking. In the first instance, it is a matter for EEI, but we do take a collegiate approach to this. It may need to be considered in a wider context, depending on the rate at which the service is itself able to make progress. But we're certainly not burying our heads in the sand over this.
I think that's what I'm worried about, the collegiate approach.
I did rather think that you were a fan of it, but perhaps it is Mrs. Grumpy to the fore at this point. Members, any other questions or comments? Councillor Nicholl.
In answer to Mrs. Maitland, Councillor Maitland, you said a wider context. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Would depend entirely on the progress it's made with the measures that have been agreed at EEI. Obviously, if there is a budget shortfall which outstrips those measures, we would need to look at methods of addressing the shortfall, as indeed would any group that wish to bring forward a balanced budget. Councillor Carruthers?
Just on that same point, I mean, I had my say in this, fair enough, on Tuesday. I'm not going to beat the drum too hard, but I do think I lined up. I've mentioned many times about under recovery of fees and how is that actually relative to the statutory service that we supply. But I do think we'll end up coming back to this committee of full council, probably policy and resources to try to allocate, and maybe more appropriately might be a kind of change in budget strapline across that particular service. But I would agree with Councillor Maitland, it is a real issue, it needs to be addressed. I went back actually to September 16 and it was almost a copy and paste. So it was in regards to the report the previous year, just the figures are different. And it's getting increasingly worse. It's something we have to be acutely aware of.
Appreciate the comment. Councillor Lever?
Well, on a more positive note, it's pleasing to see in 311 the projected additional £500,000 in council tax. And I know our council tax collection rates are already very high, so be able to find an extra £500,000 on top of that is very laudable, and I think we should congratulate Paul and his staff on being able to achieve that.
Fully in agreement with that. When you're at a high level of collection rate, it is effortful and difficult to increase that yet further. Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks. It's just the next item. After that, it's 312, the pay award. I'm intrigued. I can see the 1% for those earning 35 or more, then the flat rate of 350 for individuals earning less than 35,000. And I totally understand that. But then it's got based on a 37-hour working week. Our working week's 36. Are we actually pro-rating that? We are. So when the press release comes out that the award for local authority workers less than 35,000 a year is £350 flat rate, that's not the case in Dumfries and Galloway. So how do we cope with that PR disaster?
And there are some blank looks around the room. Anyone like to help me with this one?
I think just to confirm, like the rate we would be paying is £340 as a pro rata of the 350.
Lorna?
If it's helpful, the position that was agreed through the SGC was clear on the value and the relative working week. A number of councils have a range of working weeks, so there's 35, 37, 36, so that was the position that was reached with the trade unions, fully understood on the basis of a 37-hour week, so that's certainly been communicated, and the pay award's been made to staff, as I understand, and the back date's been made now, in fact tomorrow, so we've had no confusion from the trade unions around that, and certainly the trade unions obviously were part of the negotiation with SGC to reach that conclusion.
Okay, thank you. Any other member? It would appear not. In that case, are we content to note 2.1 through to 2.4? Take it we are. Good. Item 10, Corporate Services Budget 2017-18. This report provides members with more details of the Corporate Services Budget for 2017-18 and the activity-based budget estimates. I welcome details of the activity-based budget information as it provides members with more detail about where we spend the money and for what purpose. And highlight that as noted at paragraph 3.2, the Directorate Business Plan, which was approved in June, sets out detailed information on the Directorate and its services. Members, questions? Okay, we have then very briefly reviewed and agree the corporate services budget as detailed in Appendix 1. Are we happy with that? Excellent. Item 11, the Corporate Services Revenue Monitoring Report 2017-18. This report gives members an overview of the financial performance of corporate services for the period to July 2017. Pleased to note that the projected position for the Directorate, with the continued support of staff and clear direction from senior officers, is set to deliver a balanced budget. Members, any questions? In that case, Councillor Nicholl.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have paused too long.
Current position 105k over budget. Measures to be identified 105k. Anybody any idea what the measures might be?
Laura?
In anticipation of that question, Councillor Nicholl, I had to look back at last year's monitoring report at this stage, and we were about £50,000 of measures to be identified. Around 75% of our budget is staff, and we manage our budget very tightly around that. So we look for opportunities in terms of vacancies. We look to have a full staffing establishment, but there's always gaps through recruitment and people leaving. We also have quite tight measures around things like travel and subsistence for our staff, very minimised, additional costs within the service. And of course, we work closely with members on the corporate and democratic core budget as well. So I'm confident from the measures we've taken in previous years and the prudent measures we take through this year that we'll bring that budget within break-even again.
I'm glad it didn't disappoint the Director by not asking me a question.
And neither did you disappoint me. Have we any other questions? In that case, are we content to note 2.1 through 2.4? Item 12 is the Capital Investment Strategy Monitoring Report for the 2017-18, the period ended 30th June 2017. This report gives members information on progress so far in the Council's capital investment strategy for the current financial year. As at the end of June, the Council had spent over £14 million of the £76 million programme for this year. It's a vital part of our contribution to support our local economy and deliver projects which are key to our Council priorities. The overall funding of the investment strategy and the progress of the approved programmes within that strategy are reflected in this report, including updates on profiling of expenditure on large projects and also more detailed information on agreed projects and within approved programmes in the individual asset classes. Gemma Lowry and Paul Garrett are here to answer questions on the report. I would make the usual plea for it to be strategic, if possible. Members? Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, just quick question, yes or no. It's really with regards to 3.11. I see we've only got total capital receipts of 7,000, net 7,000 this year. Are we confident of making the 500,000 target this year?
Thank you, Gemma.
Yes, there are a number of sales that are pending at the moment, and we at the moment are projecting slightly over that target. So we're fully confident that it will be delivered.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Brodie.
Question is on the investment strategy. The question is, how do you get onto the capital investment strategy? How do you get onto the 10-year plan? There's been projects probably across the whole region, not been parochial, but across the whole region that members would like to see on that plan. We know that the capital plan is very tight, but how do we get onto that plan? The other question is, on the budget heading agreed priority projects contingency, there's a sum of £2.2 million on that. Do we know what these agreed priority projects are, and how are we going to progress those?
Okay.
Thank you. I'll take the second question first. In terms of the contingency that is there, it relates to those priority projects that are also listed within the capital investment strategy. They are amounts that were set aside but have not yet been allocated to those specific projects. In terms of the first question, the current capital investment strategy is ambitious, and when it was set out as part of the 10-year, it was made clear to members at that point in time that they were committing funding from future years in order to deliver the Schools for the Future programme. So, and that has been continually re-emphasised to members through reports subsequent. So at this stage, we would not be looking for additions to the capital programme until later years.
Pretty sure that we set the capital investment strategy and the overall plan at full council, probably around the same time as the budget. Well, budget day is always a bit of a blur for me, I would have to admit. However, you want to come back?
Just to confirm that this agreed priority project contingency hasn't been agreed yet, and what's the process for agreeing that?
The amounts set aside are based on 5% of the total project value, and if it was to be allocated to the project, that would be brought back to members to agree that allocation.
Okay, Councillor Dryburgh and Councillor Fair.
Chair, I have to say one of the good news stories at EEI on Tuesday was the actual street lighting progress that was actually going on in there. And I'm just looking at page 203 with the street lighting spent to save projects. Now at the moment I believe we're in saving about £250,000 a year on electricity usage for street lighting. I'm just wondering what the projected potential save on that actually is. Paul, I don't know if you've got that information at the moment, or you can maybe send me it later.
I don't have that information to hand, but I will bring that back to you.
Okay, Councillor Ferguson.
It's not so much a question on this paper per se, but I'm noting here in the property building other asset class programme, there's a major development to take place at Militia House. There's a major development to take place at Carruthers House. That will, I'm thinking of the logistics here. What are we doing for alternative car parking when significant parts of the car park are going to be taken up and significant areas are going to be blocked off under CDM regulations.
Someone, I hope, has a plan for that.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we're in the middle of planning for that at the moment. The work at Militia House isn't scheduled to start until next year, so the detailed planning is still going on. Militia House itself will be fully decanted of staff during that period, the majority of whom will be at KIRK, so that will relieve some of the pressure, and we'll make sure that there's a compound area that is safe and workable for the contracting staff, the public, and also for council staff.
Councillor Ferguson, yes.
Yeah, that's fair enough, and I totally take the point. Significant number of staff won't be here; they'll be somewhere else, so that should. But you've then got the added part, which I mentioned, the CDM regulations. You'll have accommodation for the people doing the work. You'll have their vehicles and everything else. It's bad enough getting around that corner just now. What's it got to be like when it's all blocked off and about so many feet back, and you've got porta cabins there, and you've got lorries there, and God knows all what. I'm just wondering what alternative arrangements are going to be put in place for the management of this building.
Okay, can we make sure that Councillor Ferguson has a parking space? That is unworthy. That absolutely is unworthy. My apologies. I take it is being looked at in detail.
I'll take
I take it this is being looked at carefully. Okay, no doubt we will find out in due course. Councillor Thompson.
Okay, on page 210, I'm looking at the ICT business systems asset class, and I'm just sort of putting it in the context of a real world example. Remember that time, I think we all probably remember, just maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, when we couldn't get any emails, and it was over Sunday, Monday, Tuesday sort of period where there was a bit of a delay. You could maybe get them on the phone, you couldn't get them on the laptops, etc. Anyway, the underlying issue seemed to be that there was a cluster of mail servers had gone down or whatever, and they weren't connected in some way. Stop me if I'm boring you already. But anyway, what I'm looking at is, in terms of that page of the report, page 210, what within that would give members and staff confidence that actually the resilience or load balancing or planned failover or redundancy, whatever, that needs to be embedded in our system or shared systems with other bodies, if that's what we're doing, means that that won't happen again?
That's probably an invitation you really shouldn't extend to me, I have to say, in terms of stopping you. However, can we assist with that?
I'll be brief. The answer to that is yes, we've learnt the lessons from that incident. It was a hardware failure on one of our servers, so unfortunately it was unpredictable. But as part of our ongoing work and delivery of the strategy, we're looking to build services in a cloud-based environment, which means that the servers and the hardware and the processing speed, etc., is delivered to us by a larger organisation, in our case probably Microsoft, and they have an awful lot more resilience and redundancy built into their systems than we could ever afford. So,
just for that clarity then, so within that, within our capital programme here, is this part of the Dumfries fibre network? I'm just trying to identify it, in terms of a real world example. What are we looking at in terms of where does that appear in this report in terms of, so this is what we can expect to see at the end of it?
Certainly, the resilience of the email system will be something that we will deliver as part of this programme. It actually falls under a number of these categories because there are different elements to that cloud-based infrastructure. One of them is the digital services delivery. The other one is the integration, improvement and innovation, because we are putting in a brand new system. And as you rightly say, the Dumfries fibre network looks at resilience locally between ourselves and the use of the new data centre in the new DGRI to give us that extra capacity.
Councillor Giusti.
Thanks, Chair. My question's in relation to page 202. Sorry, it'll be a little bit of a kind of ward issue. It's just a wee niggle that I'm having. And that's £400,000 on a flood prevention scheme in Sederunt. I don't actually remember survivor flooding, although I do welcome £400,000 being spent, but I don't understand why that's...
Okay.
This is one of 4 schemes that the Scottish Government are supporting, and they do need to meet criteria and have had historic issues for that. There have been reports presented to the EI Committee with further detail in those, which I can pass over if you'd like.
That's fine, Chair.
That would be
Thank
helpful. Okay. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. You threatened me not to mention ICT, but yeah, just one thing I would like to know is whether there's any further capital being spent in ICT regarding the library situation. And this is throughout Dumfries and Galloway. You know, there's continual complaints, and it seems to be ongoing for a long time that they can't get up the system, and that's probably having an impact on staffing as well, because staffing have to, you know, spend more time doing things in a manual way rather than, as well as a customer-based, aspect of it. The staff are actually spending more time doing the work, whereas ICT isn't, without that proper ICT support. Have you got anything on that?
Yes, there is a allowance under the applications upgrade element of the capital programme for the replacement of the library system. I believe that's currently out to tender, so should be implemented probably in the next 3 to 4 months.
Councillor Nicholson.
Should be in the next 3 to 4 months. Is there any? It's quite a long time that. Is there any reason why it's taken as long? Because it's been down for a long time.
The provision of the budget in the capital expenditure plan has been there since the beginning of the year. It's really down to the service doing the business requirements and the forward planning and so on, and getting the specification out to tender, where the delay has been.
Okay. Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks. It's actually in relation, page 205, Kirkcudbright Art Gallery. We've had a visit round there, some of the Communities Committee and the local elected members. One thing I'm a wee bit worried about here is there doesn't seem to be a capacity in there to introduce Wi-Fi for the public, which will be free access. And I have to say, I've just spent a week in Orkney visiting historic sites. Wi-Fi enhances that experience tremendously, and again, we're at the National Museum for Scotland, myself and John Martin, and some of the elected members. Again, everywhere you go, it's Wi-Fi friendly for the public, and I'm just trying to work out here is, will we, in that £3.5 million development, actually have Wi-Fi available for the public?
Okay, Graham.
So, sorry, is that specifically for
the new Kirkcudbright Art Gallery?
Kirkcudbright Art Gallery, yes, I believe there is provision of public Wi-Fi in Kirkcudbright Art Gallery.
Thanks, Graham, for that reassurance. Yeah.
Okay, any other member? In that case, we shall go to the recommendations. Are we content to note 2.1 through to 2.4? Thank you. Item 13 is the Procurement and Commissioning Regular Update, Financial Year 2017-18, Quarter 1. This report provides an overview on the key procurement activities delivered during the first quarter of this year, highlights activity relating to procurement during this time, and provides details of forthcoming opportunities and events for local suppliers. This is the first update of its kind and is a result of the requirements of the new procurement strategy and also the work of the Scrutiny Committee in recommending the development of the role of this committee in having oversight of procurement activity. The quarterly update report aims to provide us with greater visibility of the Council's procurement activity. I welcome this development, and I'm keen that this committee contributes to the development of our new approach to procurement. Karen is here to answer any questions arising from the report. Members? Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Contract activity, KPI, number of contracts awarded. I note the financial year target is 340. First quarter indicates 38 contracts awarded. I'm just wondering, is this something that's causing any concern, or is this where you would expect to be at this stage?
It's generally we're expected to be at this stage. The time it takes to actually run through the tender process typically takes a little bit more than 3 months. So from getting the budget allocations confirmed to actually going out to the market to getting to a point of awarding a contract, it doesn't give significant concern. However, the overall number of contracts required to be implemented within the year and comparing that to the current resource requirements does give us slight concerns. So that's something that I would expect to pick up through the Delegated Procurement Authority and structure review that I'm working on at the moment as well.
Okay, thank you. Leader?
Really, in terms of the non-competitive regulated procurement procedures, I'm just wondering how those are reported back to the council, because obviously we would still want to ensure that we were getting value for money on those particular projects.
That's absolutely the intention of having it built into this report. So for all non-competitive actions, they will be factored into all P&R quarterly update reports, so that it gives that visibility and scrutiny as to where that's been authorised. Most of those come through myself for sign off, and so the value for money checks need to be evidenced within any of the requests, and I've got a record of all of those for further scrutiny if required.
Thank you. Councillor Brodie?
Okay. Page 216 refers to the Citizens Advice Service and the contracts we have with them. We've had a long-standing arrangement with the Citizen Advice Service over very many years, and we noted that, and it's good that we're extending the contract for another year there. I think the feedback I'm getting is that there's uncertainty around these contracts, and the Citizens Advice Bureau have had to let experienced members of staff go because they don't have certainty about the future. This contract's for about a year. Groups like this really need certainty over a longer period to keep the staff and make sure they provide a good service. I wonder if I could have some feedback on that.
Yep, my understanding is that this will be in response to the wider review that is a matter for Communities Committee, but you can maybe give some more detail.
In terms of the contract durations, we are keen that we actually do award contracts for as long a period as possible, but while still trying to get that balance of ensuring value for money, and we do test the market and we do make sure our contracts that we have in place are delivering best value for money for the council. So the 1 year extension, as Rob alluded to, is to actually allow sufficient time for the wider review of that service delivery. But any contract thereafter, we would expect to have a longer term duration to give that certainty for the service providers.
Okay, Councillor Driver.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'm just looking at the letter from Scotland Excel on page 228 and 229, and it's good to see that we are performing well in some areas, but the PCIP identified a number of areas where there's room for further improvement, such as the 4 bullet points in there. I'm just wondering what action is actually being taken to improve that side of things.
Thank you, Karen.
Yep. The 4 areas identified, we've actually just had the detailed report come through last week that actually goes into a lot more of the specifics and how we compare to national averages. So those 4 areas are actual national averages where across local authorities in Scotland everyone is a bit weaker in those particular areas. So Scotland Excel have set up a number of workshops. So the first one's been on contract supplier management, which I attended in Glasgow a couple of weeks ago. And so we're looking to try and form into smaller groups to actually see how across the sector we can actually look to improve. I've also secured a graduate who's looking to support us on PSIP and the improvements and the recommendations coming through there. So at the moment he's exploring through the areas where others are actually scoring higher than us, including those 4 bullet points within the direct feedback, so that we can actually learn from those that are delivering well and where we view best practice across the sector.
Thank you for that. Councillor Maitland.
An earlier report mentioned compliance with our own procurement rules. Chairman, if you remember rightly, we were, I think, a bit shocked to discover that through Audit Committee that we were not absolutely compliant. Where would I feel and how would I know that there is now compliance going on with respect to that audit activities?
Am I right in thinking that might be one for our annual reporting on procurement? I'm happy to be corrected because this is new in many respects, this process.
I think the percentage of contracts that are the percentage of spend on contract is continuing to rise, which is now sitting at 80% at the moment from the reports that we're now able to get. We're doing a bit of work with the Scottish Government as well in terms of system development to get better reporting in place. So that's something that certainly in future reports I can actually draw out in a bit more detail once the reporting functionality from our systems is a bit easier. Paul also mentioned the purchase to pay project that's been set up as well. So again, once that systems review and the business process updates are in place, it will also provide us with the opportunity to provide greater insight and reporting on that. So that's something that I'm more than happy to report on in a bit more detail going forward through the quarterly reports.
Okay. Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks, Chair. I refer to page 217, the bottom bullet point, childcare brokerage service. I suppose, looking for a reassurance here that this isn't an added piece of work which is going to, that actually maybe the question should be, is it being taken forward in conjunction with the developing childcare thing that SIPL are developing? Because my worry would be here that a lot of the old brokerage things were for childcare, although some very specific reasons for different children. And I'm just trying to tease out here, are the two going hand in hand, or they work in separate directions?
Yeah, the two are hand in hand. We're working with our colleagues in SIPL on that, so it's just to recognise that the activity is taking place in terms of the procurement team as well.
Okay, any other member? Councillor Crothers.
Chair, I did have my hand up, but I thought you picked up on this, but it doesn't really matter. Most of the points have been covered, and as far as from other members, I suppose just beat that same drum as I did earlier. I think it merits its own committee. I've said that already, but I'll reassure it again. Make sure we've got I think a lot of things I'd like to discuss. I think in regards to procurement, we'd probably exclude the public. You really get into the meat and gravy, really understand, and we need to get that level of expertise from the membership of the council to fully understand that. And I think some of the comments that have been made in regards to up to now, I think we really would support that, Chairman. So everything else what I was going to say has been covered anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Crothers. Persistence is, at least at this point, a virtue. Councillor Johnson.
I just refer to something in Appendix 2, page 231. It's the one with all the nice wee pictures, so that's more suitable for me, obviously. But I notice you have no employees undertaking professional procurement training. Is there a plan to do that?
Yes, there is a plan in place. The procurement team have gone through their PDR reviews and we've identified SIPS training as the professional procurement qualification. So at the moment we're looking, there's a course starting in September, so I've got 3 procurement officers that we're looking to get scheduled onto the next available training. So the reason it's not started to date has just been trying to get them booked onto the relevant course.
Okay, any other member? Excellent. Are we then content to note the update provided and agree to receive further updates on a quarterly basis, I think with the additions that had been referred to in response to Councillor Maitland's question? Okay, excellent, if we're content with that. Item 14 is the Dumfries and Galloway Council Revised Records Management Plan. This report provides an update on progress with the Council's Records Management Plan since its approval in 2014 and submission to the Keeper of the Records of Scotland. We're also presented with updates to the plan and the supporting information required by legislation which would accompany an update submission to the Keeper. Our proposed update to the Keeper also provides for the adoption of the South West of Scotland Transport Partnership within our plan on the recommendation of the Keeper. I welcome the actions taken, good progress outlined within the report, and particularly the positive opportunity and the contribution that our graduate placement scheme has made to developing the plan. James Pocock and Lindsay Turby are here to answer any questions on the report, and I'll open this up to members' questions and comments now. Councillor Maitland, so you were slightly out of my line.
How do staff know about their duties? How do they know? I mean, is it something that is an ongoing rolling programme of needing to know, or are people told as they come in and then it just kind of gets put into all the other things that they're supposed to know?
Records management's included within the induction programme for staff, so it's within the full training courses. And we also have continual engagement, sending out staff communications, going around team meetings and making sure that line managers are making staff aware of their responsibilities.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholl.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Swestrands, one of the recommendations is to approve the adoption of the South West of Scotland Transport Partnership into Dumfries and Galloway Council's Records Management Plan. Presumably, there will be a cost connected to that. Who pays?
James, you taking that?
Because it's council staff using council systems, there is no real overhead for us. They'll be following the same processes and practices that we're putting in place for the rest of the corporate council. So any cost is very much at the margin.
You content with that? Perhaps I should not have asked that question. Members, have we any other questions? Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks, Chair. I've just broken my mic. It's a KPI or no. The kind of question I've got here is there's a lot of appendices which have been included in the recommendations here, and I'm looking at some of them now quite rightly with the new policy telling you when they're updated, and some of them were updated only a couple of weeks ago. And I suppose it's a governance question, is should they go to service committees before they come here, so that service committees can scrutinise any potential changes and agree them, and then they would be part of the policy, because there may be some policy changes in here that we members aren't aware of.
Just double checking to my right, but the appendices would all be matters for this committee as a Policy and Resources Committee of the Council.
Yeah, but the question is that normally goes through the subcommittee first, then comes back with recommendations. It doesn't come straight here.
Perhaps it could be helpful. The delegation for records management, information management sits with Policy and Resources Committee. So this is a presentation of the updated policies that have supported the records management policy. At 3.3.3, Lindsay and James have explained what the main updates are, but ostensibly officers have been maintaining potential updates and recording that, and actually good practice in terms of records management to be able to identify those amendments, but they weren't enacted until they come forward in front of this committee today. So I apologise, Andy, if that is confusing in the way we've presented it. But it's certainly the remit of this committee to consider the update documents.
No, thanks very much for that, Chair. It's that reassurance. I was just trying to find out, exactly what the right route for that was, and I'm clear now. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Maitland.
What's a Kensington lock, and has anybody got one?
I beg your pardon. But maybe someone can assist.
I can speak to you afterwards, Jane. It's a call to the service desk.
Well, hang on. It's on page 329 here, and and we're being advised that where it's issued or available, always use a Kensington lock to make it physically secure. I'm just curious to know who's got one, and
would you like to clarify further?
It's a security lock for your laptop. Think of it as a bike chain for your laptop.
I was hoping we were going to get away without talking about laptops again today. Councillor Carruthers.
Thanks, Chairman. Just a brief one. I think Hulk Hogan used to use that particular lock in some of his moves, from memory. See, in regards to something I experienced this week, and it's particular records that we do keep. So it's just to try and get into context for myself. We've got an existing. If we agree today, then within 48 hours it'll be a new records management policies will be there in place and we'll adhere to them. But what we've got previously and what we've had in the past, I suppose particularly around about legal contracts, documents, stuff like that. Will this be an improvement in regards to that when it comes to legal documentation, things about whether it's PPPs, Ryan Centres, DG1s, whatever it may be? I just wondered, these may well be important and for future discussions at some point in time. Wouldn't like to think that these things were being lost.
Okay, James?
So the retention schedules, which are referred to in the records management plan, provide clarity to staff on how long we should retain records of that type. So we'll be able to refer back to those and ensure that those that we do need to keep, we are keeping, and those that we do not need to keep, we're disposing of securely.
Okay, Sean.
Yeah, just a quick but kind of specific question with regards to planning records. I know we're on e-planning now, but how far do the records go back for planning, and is there any different way that we actually collate and record those?
I would need to refer specifically to the retention schedules, but they have been developed by the services based on the legislation that is in place. So I can look at that specifically and come back to you with regards to planning.
Okay, any other member? Councillor Maitland.
I think we'd all be interested in that. That's something actually which I wrote down here. Thinking about because the public's particularly interested in planning. You know, they want to know because they can look up what. So I don't know how long that does go back. I think we'd all like to know that, please.
Okay.
I'm happy to come back to all members with the planning and retention schedule. If that's of help.
Okay, by all means, that would be useful. Councillor Carruthers.
Yeah. On the same point, Chairman, thanks. Do you see me? Aye, thanks very much. On the same point, I know we've got paper record going back to the 80s, even the 70s in regards to planning, but we're supposed to have the updated e-planning well up to date now. At least going back to the late 80s, early 90s, I think we're miles off that, and that's where I certainly find the frustration. To be able to go and access them electronically, you can go through and hive through the archives and so on and so forth, but it takes forever. So the quicker that gets into place, the better, Chairman.
Strikes me that might be a slightly different project, the digitisation, however.
It does fall within part of the records management programme to look at our physical records across the council, so we will need significant resource to kind of deal with that at the time.
Leader?
On page 315, it is that it is the responsibility of all council staff and elected members to ensure that the records they are using are handled and processed in line with these procedures and standards. Now, I've indicated that when staff come that they have an induction programme and they're made aware of their responsibilities. I just wondered what was in place for elected members, because obviously not all elected members are members of this committee.
We'll work with colleagues in member services to pull something together specifically for members, if that's of interest.
I think that would be sensible in that case. Councillor Ferguson?
The immediate response for me on that one is, do we have 42 filing cabinets? 43, sorry, filing cabinets.
It's 42, you can have mine, I don't need it. Although according to the new policy, maybe I might.
Under this policy, yeah, we do. You need somebody to keep records secure that are paper.
I think it probably points to something that we will need to look at in terms of what the obligations of the policy will be for members. But certainly getting that clarified, I think, would be useful. And in any case, we have a lot of new members, and a refresher on the things that we ought to be doing and ought not to be doing as far as it's concerned, I think would be valuable. Okay, any other member? Councillor Marshall.
Sorry, just on that last point, maybe wrap that in with the FOI as well. The kind of linked.
Okay. Always good to have an update on FOI. Councillor Thompson.
Sorry, it was just on the same point, but we were lucky to have a visit to the new Irish Street premises yesterday for social work, and with the implementation of agile working, it seems that there are kind of individuated lockable sort of lockers, if you like, for staff members. I don't know if that's sort of tied into this, but that's kind of part of the rollout of agile working, where you might not have a desk, but you've got a locker to keep your stuff secure. So I don't know if that's sort of tied in with the sort of changing way we develop our workplace culture.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've been working with the Smarter Working team, and the Clear Desk policy is part of that. So the fact that we're not leaving paper records or our laptops on desks anymore, we're expected to put them away if you're away from your desk into the lockable lockers.
Okay, any other questions or comments? In that case, we'll move to recommendations. Members were asked to approve 2.1. Are we happy? To consider and approve 2.2. Note at 2.3. Consider and approve at 2.4. Are we agreed? Thank you very much. Item 16 has been withdrawn. Item 15 has been withdrawn, I beg your pardon. Item 16, former workshop, Kirk Lane, Lockerbie, proposed community asset transfer. The Council is committed to empowering communities to make the most of their assets and the talents of the people who live and work in our region. This report presents us with a proposal for a community asset transfer of the former community payback workshop, KIRK Lane, Lockerbie, to the Lochmaben Men's Shed Group. The purpose of men's sheds in general, for those who are not aware, is to provide recreational facilities and advance the social needs, health and well-being of men of all ages and backgrounds, as well as offering opportunities to undertake creative, physical and other purposeful activities of their choice. Lochmaben Men's Shed Group have developed a business plan which outlines the positive health and well-being impact this development can have, as well as the wider community and personal benefits it is likely to achieve. The report advises us of the recommendation from Lockerbie and Lochmaben Common Goods Subcommittee, which agreed that a community asset transfer be made to the Trust for a nominal sum, with the condition that the required capital funding for the project is secured by 1st April 2018. Jimmy Ferguson and Stephen Wiley are here to answer any questions. Councillor Driver.
Thanks very much, Chair. I think this is one of these good news stories where we can actually help people deliver what they want to do. I think men's sheds are popping up all over the place and actually helping local community organisations and the people themselves. This one, I've got absolutely no problem with the recommendations, and I would move so, Chair.
Very happy to second that if it's needed, but looking at the room, do we have agreement? Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, this obviously was a sub-matter for the Lockerbie Common Good Committee, and one of the points that I think, there was a few items where we just felt under 3.12 that should be considered in terms of agreeing anything, which aren't necessarily specified in the recommendations, unless we're going to say the recommendations that Lockerbie Common Good Subcommittee made out, as set out in paragraph 3.12, are actually explicitly going to be included in the agreement that we have today. So it's just to be clear on that one.
Those I should imagine we can incorporate at 2.3 if everyone is content. In that case, I take it we're agreed, and we'll move to item 17, which is lease of land at BIRKLAND Road Park, Castle Douglas. This report presents us with 3 Rovers Community Football Club's proposed business plan for the lease of land in the area known as BIRKLAND Road Park, Castle Douglas, and asks us for our decision on the proposed lease. Proposals for lease within the club's business plan have been subject to recent consultation by the club with the local community. Stewardship Area Committee has also been consulted, that was on 23rd August 2017, and is in agreement with the proposal for a 25-year lease of land to the club, and has recommended the condition that the club must demonstrate accessibility, inclusion and involvement of the wider community. Jamie's joined this time by Sean O'Toole, Ward Officer, who is here to answer any questions on the report. Members, any questions or comments? Councillor Driver.
Again, just like the previous one, and I would agree with the recommendation for Stewart Area Committee that condition is applied, and then just go with the recommendations here.
I'm very happy to second that. However, Councillor Brodie.
Yeah, I just didn't see any mention of annual cost for the lease.
Gentlemen, can we clarify that?
Just doesn't say it in the report.
Okay, can I just take advice on that?
I think the officers have indicated the lease is for a nominal amount of £1, and we should record that in the recommendations if members are content and make it explicit.
It would appear that you have hit upon something we had all missed. I take it the members are content that this is at the sum outlined? Yeah, it depends where you're trying to park. A lot of the machines don't actually accept them yet. Anyway, it's another sort of thing. Okay, if we go to the recommendations, we are asked to consider at 2.1. We've noted the recommendations, Stewart Area Committee at 2.2. We're asked to agree to the lease for a period of 25 years. I take it we are agreed at that. And in terms of 2.4, the condition is that from the Stewardship Area Committee. And we're further noting, I think, as a 2.5 in that case, are we not, that it is for the sum of £1 a year. Members content? Excellent. I have no other urgent business and I'm advised that lunch has arrived. Thank you all very much for your attendance and your contributions.